We are most pleased to have three councilmen with the Modesto City Council joining the Modesto B Editorial Board today. We're excited about the opportunity to learn more and to share what you have to share with our viewers and readers. And so I want to introduce, starting on our left, Eric Alvarez, Nick Bavaro in the center, and Chris Ricci on the right. Thank you for being here. Let's get started with a definition. What does safe camping look like? Who wants to take this one first?
Safe camping is an area where homeless people can go and be safe without fear of predators, without fear of losing other homeless people stealing from them. It is an area where they can go, be safe, have access to toilets, showers, food, and that to me is the definition of a safe area.
All right. Anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's a safe space. You know, we had at the last council meeting there was a speaker. Her name's Lindell, and she comes to almost every meeting, and she was talking about how several of the homeless people she had helped last week were sleeping and got beaten severely. And if we had a place where they could go that was safe space, that they knew that they could sleep and not get beaten, that would be awesome. With the added plus that if we know that through the experience we've had with our chat programs and our ranger programs, we see the same people over and over again, and some of them need documents, some of them need drug treatment, some of them need counseling, all sorts of different things. People put homeless in one box. They're not in one box. They're in lots of different boxes. But the problem is, since they have nowhere to go, our social service teams can't track down people consistently to give them the help they need. And so this would also help.
We're going to get into what is included in that as well as we continue to talk. Maria?
What cities or counties in California are doing safe camping, and what are some of those outcomes?
I mean, lots. Sacramento's doing it. I know in Marin County there's a ton. What are the outcomes? Some work better than others. Some are working. Usually, safe camping is not a permanent solution, right? It's a temporary, very temporary solution while we catch up with first-tier homeless solutions like congregate shelters, like tiny homes, like pallet shelters that we need that we don't have enough of yet, right? So safe camping is not an ideal, awesome solution. It's terrible that that's the fast emergency solution we need right now, but it's what we got.
That's a good point to highlight other areas of the state that are trying to mitigate the effects of homeless. But just a quick stats here to kind of give us a kind of a bird's eye macro view based on my research on this specific subject. California is 12% of the U.S. population, right? Our state, but we have 25% roughly of the nation's homeless, and approximately 50% of the nation's unsheltered homeless.
So
that's not normal
than our fair share.
It's not normal. It's not normal, and that doesn't have to be like that. And I think one of the reasons why we're experiencing that is because of high cost of living in this state. And as my colleagues mentioned, we have a variety of programs in place that are part of the continuum of care that I think we can do a better job as a city in communicating that. And making sure that information is getting to the people who need that information, and doing it in a culturally responsive way, right? We have a variety of languages spoken here in Modesto and in our county and in our region, but specifically in Modesto, we need to make sure that we proliferate these resources, proliferate the emergency contacts, key information to the folks that need it, and work with service care providers to work then subsequently with their constituencies to try to do our best to get this information out. And ultimately what I'm saying is outreach is number one. We should start there.
So What is or are the barriers to safe camping in Modesto, either perceived or actual?
I think Moe's is probably the biggest, barrier. The
Okay, you're
Are you-
talking in code speak here. and tell us what
Modesto
that means.
Outreach Shelter, emergency shelter.
yeah, this was when the big lawsuit came in that said that you could camp in any park at any time if the shelters were full. The city and the county were very quick to react and to build a temporary tent city for unhoused people. And
So
it-
Modesto did have an emergency shelter
Temporary.
like that. We put up a bunch of tents under the freeway.
About
Yeah.
317 tents at its peak, about 600 homeless people at its peak. The challenge was there was not wasn't really thought out. You put homeless people together, you have a family next to a group of criminals, next to a child molester, things are going to happen. Okay, it's like anything in that regard. So it was a city within its city, and it was not successful, in my opinion. At the time, they were probably, my understanding is they were concerned about being sued, the city and the county, because
For
of
not having a place.
because of the Boise decision. And you needed, in order to have it illegal to have encampments in parks or sidewalks, they had to have a place to go, because being homeless is not illegal.
Well, give our viewers some context. What happened after that? I mean, that didn't last
I
forever.
think we
We're
need to look.
talking-
We need to look at the I think it's important though that we look back at the definition of success of a project like Moe's, right? So Moe's had some weaknesses. It had fires. People passed away there. There were crimes there. People got stuff stolen, right? And that's what the government really focuses on, right? But there also were successes in the sense that these people were housed in an area that wasn't in front of on people's porches. They were not in parks. They were not sleeping in people's businesses. So there was successes too, right? So we focus on the 100% negative, and I think that's a very important piece of this safe space, safe camping argument, is that the expectation that this is going to solve the problem or it's going to be like pretty is incorrect. It's not going to. It is going to help mitigate some of the problem, but it is not. It's not the best solution.
Okay, but we no longer have Moe's tents under the freeway. We now have a low barrier Bavarian shelter, which is the largest shelter for the homeless now. We'll get into that a little more, but when Carlos asks, what is the barrier to safe camping, when you say Moe's, what does that mean?
When I say Moe's, I don't think Moe's. Okay, so because of I thought I answered it, but let me answer it again. Because of the bad things that happened at Moe's, the government is very reticent to be putting together a similar oriented facility.
Okay.
Even if we try to mitigate it by making it smaller and follow the best practices that other cities are doing, they still are very concerned about liability and lawsuits and all that stuff. So.
Another barrier, Garth, I think, is that cities, from what I understand, is that cities are not getting no direct allocation from the state to combat or to try to deal with this issue. I think cities are using, hopefully we don't have to do this, but cities are using ARPA one-time dollars to deal with an ongoing issue without funding that counties get or the big 13 cities get across the state. And I think we need to work collaboratively with the county who get social services funding to mitigate this problem.
We've noted that the Bavarian shelter, it has been operating for what now? 3 years? Something?
ACEs.
Cases,
ACEs?
Bavarian before
Access
that.
Center, Emergency Shelter, Salvation Army Bavarian.
Okay, so homeless people have options. Why would we need more?
Why
Isn't
would,
that enough?
no, it's not enough. You know,
It's
we-
physics. We've got 800 homeless people and 400
yeah,
beds,
okay.
or however many we actually.
And
have.
also, the shelters, you have everyone in one room usually, you know, and so a lot of homeless people that I talk to on the streets are not there because they don't want to be in a room with, you know, 150 people who steal from them or, you know, intimidate them. They're unable to bring their dogs in there with them. The dogs have to go into a kennel of their own next to the bed. So a lot of the homeless people I talk to tell me they prefer being on the street than in one of the shelters because of the model. Okay, so there are other models that the city can use, like Dignity Moves, where homeless people can come off the street, go in there, and have their own room, their own privacy, and they have their own lock. And they have a community shower, they have community bathrooms, they have community kitchens. They have social services there to deal with either mental health or drug addiction, caseworkers. So, and they can bring their dog, and the dog is their life. And the dog can sleep in the bed with them. I talk to homeless people who tell me, I'm not going to go to the shelter because my dog sleeps with me, not in the kennel. So there's not all homeless people wear size 9 shoes, okay? There's needs, there's experiences, and you know, there's a lot of people on the street that are, I've talked to women who have been molested since childhood by family. You have women on the street that domestic violence and have ran away from their spouse and had nowhere to go. You have people who are mentally disabled. You have elderly people. So it's a cross section of people that are on the street. And we need to be able to try to find a temporary place where they can go that meets their need. It's like going to the doctor and before the doctor examines you and he says, you need to take these pills. So wait a minute, you know, you don't know what I have. Okay, so we need to have certain types of shelters or safe areas, I guess, whatever you want to call them, that identify with the needs of that person. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
so we've pretty much established a need, and that there is one in Modesto, and maybe there's a need beyond what is being offered right now. I guess it's assumed, or have we already said, that the three of you are proponents of the idea of safe camping?
100%.
Okay, so why not just take this to the city and say we're going to do it?
It doesn't work that way. You know, first of all, there's a Brown Act, so only us three can talk with each other. I don't know the last person that went to jail for committing a violation on the Brown Act, but you know, we have to respect it.
It's
And
decorum,
It's
man.
decorum, and we're constantly reminded of that law. So we need to develop a plan, and we need to work with city staff to develop a plan. In our conversations, we believe that we need to have a safe area for it, and we need to maybe start with a pilot program so you can gather data. What works, what does not work. Have an area, and then once that's completed, you can prototype it throughout the county. Okay? We've had discussions with the Sheriff Dirksky, who's 100% on having safe camping areas throughout the county. And I've met with some Board of Supervisors. I'm meeting with the chairman on Friday of the Board of Supervisors. And we're talking about this need. So, you know, we need to have a prototype. We need to have a safe area as a pilot program. We need to put homeless people there. And we need to learn on how we can get them, first of all, there. What brings them there is going to be safety, restrooms, showers, and then we can have the county mental health and those.
EST.
Yep, and those who work with addiction, and they can then assess and then move to the next level. So yeah, I mean, right now, in my opinion, it's not very efficient because you have homeless people scattered throughout the city of Modesto. When a caseworker tries to locate one person and then goes there the next day, that person's gone. They're somewhere else. So it's, in my opinion, not very efficient. And plus these people are broken, 100%. They're broken. And there's a trust factor. And so if you have somebody one day that's a caseworker and then another caseworker the next day, it just doesn't work.
3 months ago, the three of you jointly authored what we call an op-ed column, a column that was printed on our opinions page in the Modesto Bee. You know, we don't see that happen a lot, where three members of an agency board come together to do something like that.
What prompted that? Why did you elect to do that?
I'll take this one
Take
since
it.
it
It's your idea.
was my idea. I don't know about Chris or Eric, but there's not a day goes by that I am not contacted by constituents in my district about people doing drugs in the parks, unable to take their kids there because there's needles. I don't.
People doing drugs in the parks 5 feet from kids playing in the parks.
Yes. So there's a lot of frustration. I have a guy over on Yosemite, and I'm going to say Yosemite Avenue. I'm going to say his name because he calls me, sends me pictures. Jim Scott, him and his wife, call me, and they have a business there where they have a real problem with homeless people, defecating on their property, having sex on their property. And so that's really frustrating. And we have in Modesto, our plan is you have outreach and you have shelter and you have transitional housing all the way. The outreach needs to be better controlled because it's all people are sleeping in parks. They're camping on sidewalks and on business parks. What prompted this was we're working within the system and we're pushing the needle. Okay, and so we at the council, when we have a great city council, there's a lot of discussion when we're in public, but there's never arguments. It's just a good discussion. And I believe everybody on our city council are on the same page with us on trying to find on how to manage. I don't want to use the word solution because you're not going to solve homelessness, but you can manage it. And so it's a matter of just another means for us to be able to make our point that we want to do something to be taken seriously, and also let our constituents know in our districts that we're pushing this. This is the stuff that was in my campaign literature. It's uncommon when you have somebody running for office that endorses and branded by a sales tax, okay, and runs unopposed. But within that, homelessness, public safety, we're all on the top tier of all of our campaigns. So we're keeping our commitment to our constituents, and we want to get something done, certainly.
Well, and the other thing I want to say real quickly is that we're on term limits. We're on a clock. So like we ran on X and Y and said we were going to help solve these problems, and then like you said, like that letter was 3 months ago. I was elected 3 years ago. Like and we've done some good stuff. And so I don't want to belittle. I'm not trying to belittle the government or the rest of the council at all here. This is hard, complicated stuff, But like, we need to try to push the clock forward and speed things up and get the conversation going more. And the article in the Bee the editorial was a good way to keep that conversation going.
And it started out, I thought it was very positive editorial. It said, we're pleased by the effort of our city manager, Joe Lopez, and his staff to increase our stock of low-income and affordable housing. They've done an excellent job during a time when progress on housing is extremely difficult. We're also pleased to soon open a day center that will give homeless people somewhere to go during the day. However, we have concerns that we have not yet achieved a pragmatic plan in reducing the number of homeless people camping in our city parks, sidewalks, public areas, and businesses and residential. That's just saying we're pleased with our city government staff. They've done, in my opinion, an excellent job with the resources we've had. But they've done a good job, but it's not good enough. We're not.
In the process of building a consensus, it is a process. It takes time. We've got, I saw your op-ed that you did about homelessness, and like, I see our other council members, they're strongly considering this issue, and a lot of them are moving. I don't want to say anything because of the Brown Act, but like, there are other council members that their opinions are changing, and have changed over the last 3 months. So I feel like we are on the precipice of putting another brick in that solution level management area for this problem.
To kind of give some framework then, there are 7 members of the city council. You are 3, so the 3 of you comprise a minority of that 7. How did the other 4 react to your op-ed column, and do you have any regrets for having done it?
No regrets. Again, I have a good relationship with all my other council members, and we do have discussions. We don't have arguments. So it's a great Modesto. I think it's probably one of the best city councils Modesto ever had. There's no vindictiveness. So it's like they're not going to say anything to me. I don't know about you guys, because if they do have a conversation with us, they're violating the Brown Act.
Okay, but being mad at you, they're not. But you're also saying that you want to work within the system, and persuasion is some of that. Chris has said that, do you sense then that there are some that may swing over to?
You can hear it in the council comments. I mean, in the council comments a couple weeks ago, David Wright was talking about how he wants to try to take safe. You were there, I think. He wants to take safe camping, safe spaces, and start working it through the Shaw. So like that, I take as a public comment that.
Step forward.
Step forward, right?
Okay, so safe camping is not just pie in the sky. It actually could.
It could happen. Here's the thing, and I take the blame for this 100%. When I started talking about safe camping areas, I was not specific on what we wanted to do. So it was under the impression by people at City Hall that I was wanting another Moe's, meaning the city and runs it. That's not the case. What we want is to have, is a pilot program that has a service provider. The city of Modesto is not going to be providing we're not going to be out there every day. We have a service provider who is contracted to work the safe camping area. And so when I started talking about that, okay, I kind of understand what you're saying now. So I take blame because of my ability to articulate that point. But we want a safe camping area that has a service provider. We want to partner with the county. The county would be, helping with the funds. Hopefully the city would be able to locate city property where we can have a site, and then put a plan together, and then move forward with the pilot program and see how it works, and gather data, make improvements. And then once we do that, we prototype it not only through the city, but through the county. Okay, because now we have a product that we've tested. Sheriff Dirksky's on board, 100%. And he's, in my opinion, the only elected official that's elected by the whole county. Okay? He's not elected by districts. Supervisors are by districts. Councilmen are elected by districts. The mayor is elected by the city. Sheriff Dirksky is taking leadership in this.
I want to touch on your point, your question earlier, both questions, Garth. I didn't want to interrupt my
That's fine,
colleagues,
go ahead.
but when Nick brought this idea to me several months back about signing on to that letter, it was exactly what it was speaking to what my constituents wanted, what I campaigned on: safe and clean parks, safe and clean streets. Those are two of my top priorities. And when he brought this to me, I had recently had a conversation with a stakeholder group in my district about how Robertson Road Park, Cesar Chavez Park, Martin Luther King Park, all of those public facilities with bathrooms are blocked. You cannot go right now. We can take a walk over there or drive over there. You cannot go and use a restroom, even if we're all there as contributing members of society and use a restroom. We pay for those restrooms as taxpayers. Why can't I use those restrooms, right? Because you go walk around there, you see needles, you see urine, you see human feces, and to try to combat that, a solution from the city is let's just lock them. So when he brought this to me, it was perfect timing, and it's something that I had a responsibility to take action on because it was a step towards what I campaigned on. It was a step towards being true and honest and holding myself accountable to what I told my voters I would do. And I think we have a responsibility to have those hard conversations. You mentioned, were any of our colleagues irritated or angry at us? I don't think we're that kind of council. I think we're Modesto first kind of thinkers. We have good hearts, we have good minds. And so anytime we have a conversation, we listen to each other. We hear each other out. And oftentimes you think of debate as something that's bad. But when you have folks who have different ideas contributing to a conversation, that diversity of opinions and conservative and more liberal or moderates, getting those folks around a table generates ideas, which ultimately generate solutions. So we're not the kind of council to shy away at hard conversations. We're a type of council, I think, to have these conversations, especially when it's a citywide concern. It's not a District 2 concern, although historically you see homeless majority here in the downtown area, as you do in any city. But this is a citywide
Is that
issue.
your
District 2, yeah, which is comprised of downtown, the west side of Modesto, the south side, and then now after the 2020 census includes the airport neighborhood. And
So
historically,
we might say that it impacts your district
disproportionately,
although it does touch all of them.
it's a citywide issue, right? Because these folks they weren't just born in District 2 and stayed here. They come from all regions of the county and all areas of Modesto. And so that's how we're approaching this problem.
I feel like you've talked a little bit about this already in your answers, but how would you rate the city's performance in addressing the homeless epidemic? And maybe this is an opportunity to highlight some specifics.
My response is we have done a beautiful job with downtown streets people. We have chat. We're increasing our chat team. And we have chat and we have park rangers. Our city manager, no doubt in my mind, thinks about the homeless issue every day. That's because Chris, Nick, and Eric are talking to them every other day. So, and our city staff is committed to working on the homeless issue. You have outreach, we have camp to home model. So it's outreach, shelter, job training, permanent employment, and permanent housing. I think we've done a great job in working on affordable housing or meeting the needs of people who that need assistance. We need to work harder and smarter in the areas of getting people off the streets and into a safe area. That's where we need to work. Everything else falls in place. But there's there's many sides to the story, but my constituents go to their neighborhood parks and they have a right to go to their neighborhood parks. It's not right to have homeless people camping there. It's not right to have homeless people camping on our streets. In business parks, it's not right. Pushing these carts around town. We need to have an area for them to go and to be able to, while they're there, get rest. Homeless people are up all night usually because they are in fear. So they need to go somewhere where they know they can be safe and get rest and then get help. And so those are the areas that we need to work on. And it impacts our economic development. It impacts high-paying jobs. I mean, I've talked to real estate agents who are bringing people into Modesto, and I've talked to CEOs of companies in Modesto. You're bringing them into Modesto for medical or in manufacturing, high-paying jobs. And when they come across the bridge on Kansas Avenue onto Needham, they are not impressed because they run right into that brick wall. And businesses, businesses don't do well when you have to step over or walk around an encampment on a sidewalk. So people in my district have had enough. I hear it every day, and I work on this every day. Chris and I and Eric talk a lot to each other, and we're trying to work our way through the system. But to answer the question, I really do believe our city staff and the city manager is working or trying to find ways to improve the homeless problem in Modesto.
Yeah, I know it doesn't really sell newspapers to say that the city manager and the staff are doing a good job, but they are. And if you look at the 7th Street project, that affordable housing project in your district, Eric, is transformational for the city. I was just at the project that we're doing on 9th Street today with former Councilman Hahn, looking at, and I can show you the pictures there. It's amazing, this little development we funded for foster kids on 9th Street.
Right.
The city is doing some absolutely incredible stuff. What we're saying is while Chat and Rangers and Downtown Streets team and the ACES shelter and the Bavarian and safe parking and a homeless day center and all the stuff we're doing are awesome. We're just saying there's another step we can do to make things even better, and that's what we're trying to talk to people about.
City of Modesto, I know the city can move quickly. In March, I was in Santa Barbara, and I toured a facility there called Dignity Moves. And it is a homeless shelter, and they were taking people off the streets and putting them in that shelter, and they had their own bedroom. It was private. I brought Eric and Chris I introduced Dignity Moves to Eric and Chris. We got on a conference call with Dignity Moves and received a great briefing. And we all agreed. We took it to the city manager, and the city manager ran with it. Now, everything was lined up, but the county is now going to, and this should be, it's going to come to the council in September, I believe, and the board of supervisors to vote on funding. But this thing started, it's going to be done in October or November, I believe. At least that's what I'm told. And they're going to be able to use that for mental health, schizophrenic, people that we
Married to the care court.
It's married to the care court.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
this idea that Nick discovered, this Dignity Moves, like he found this idea, he brought it to Joe brought it to the county. Now it's going through city council. This
It was
week
like
it's
a
going to
fire.
be built, and it's going to help the care court system. Our local government is working. It's just we need to keep working. We're not done.
Yeah, and so now the county, and actually Care Court was secured, one of 7 counties in California was secured by Supervisor Withrow. 100% credit to Supervisor Withrow. He did an excellent job, and kudos to him because he made it happen. Got Care Court, Dignity Moves, county staff, Ruben, what's his last name? Imperial. They jumped on it. Now we're going to be able to get people go through Care Court. They're going to be able to get into, I don't know what they're going to call it, but let's just say Dignity Moves. They're going to have BHRS be able to work with them.
County mental health.
Yep, and then they're going to determine, from what I'm told, either they're going to move into transitional housing after a short period of time, or they're going to go to a facility. Okay, the Dignity Moves is not a long-term facility.
It's also the purpose of it in care court is very narrow too. Like it's only for people that are just mentally ill. So if you're mentally ill because you took too much methamphetamine, it's not for you, right? So Dignity Moves is gonna solve like one sliver.
It's just a sliver of it,
right? It's a big sliver, but like we got other slivers we got to deal with too, and that's what we're talking about.
We need more Dignity Moves in
Yeah.
Modesto, not only for Care Court, but we need Dignity Moves just like we need ACE. I mean, what is that? Bavarian Shelter and those other shelters. We need to have those shelters, and the ones who do not want to go into a large room where everybody's in there with them, they can go to a Dignity Moves and have a private room. And guess what? Those people, and there's a percentage out there of homeless people that don't want to follow rules, that don't want any help. They just want to use drugs and they want to be on Dry Creek and, to hell with everybody. We need to hold them accountable. We need to hold homeless people accountable to a standard. We want to help them. We want, mind you, most of these people are not coming back as CPAs, okay? We just want them to come back and have dignity in their life. They're going to have care. But for those who refuse service and want to just live on our streets and to hell with it, we need to hold them accountable.
Okay, so accountability is important. Also, credit where credit is due. There are a lot of initiatives that the city is working on, some with the county, most probably with the county, which is important because they will deal with substance abuse and mental health. And you would need really both hands to count up the number of things that the city is working on. But the fact remains that you see a whole.
Yes, and they're doing a great job. We want the part of outreach to add to outreach safe camping. Okay.
Do you have a location in mind for the pilot project?
That is the issue of staff to be able to do that. It's our job is to set policy and give direction. But I'm not going to drive around Modesto and then send the city manager, hey, look at this property or that. That's city management. It's inappropriate for me to get in the middle of, or all of us to get in the middle of the city manager's responsibilities.
We imagine that there will be people that will have things to say once the locations are proposed. If
The NIMBY
if you-
people will be out in force, yeah.
That's
Sure.
okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? We have to do the right
One thing
thing.
at a time.
We have to do the right thing. And the right thing for our constituents and the right thing for the homeless people that are on the streets. And many of them,
Hey, have we mentioned Safe Park at all? It's coming up pretty quickly.
That was
would
your
one of
mind.
you like to mention what that is?
that was
and-
Chris's,
And how that is different
Yeah.
from Safe Camp?
sure, that was Chris's idea.
Okay, Chris?
Kudos to
Yeah,
Kim.
yeah.
Chris.
Safe parking, basically, in my district, there's people that live in their cars, a lot of them. They live by Grisada Park, they live by Enslin, they live by Pikes Park.
So not all homeless have nothing.
Right.
Some have a car.
Right. I mean, and like, so rents right now in Modesto are very, very high. I mean, you look at like a 1-bedroom apartment, you're looking $1,500, Eric, you think about?
If you're lucky, yeah.
Yeah, like $1,500, you know, and so if you're making $15 an hour and you're single, that's a very difficult hill to climb because most rentals, they want you, that they go by the 30% rule that 30% of your income should cover your rent. And so if you don't hit those numbers, then you're a very high risk tenant, right? And so what happens is a lot of people can't get a place to live, and so they live in their cars, right? And so this is a problem. We see it in the neighborhoods. We see it all over the place. And so the idea here is that they suffer from a lot of the similar issues that homeless do in the sense that it's not safe to sleep at night, you know, in your car. People get beaten up, they get broken into, they get robbed. And so what we want to do is give people a safe place to park. And so what we did is we found, and this credit goes to Jessica Hill, who found this lot that's attached to the Bavarian, that the county had a lease on, and she negotiated that. It took like a year. It was really difficult to do that negotiation, but she did an incredible job. Got it done, and so now if you're a person that's living in your car, you'll have the option to go to the safe parking lot. There's 25 spaces. You can get out of your car in the morning and get a shower and get a hot meal at the Bavarian. And most importantly, it's got the wraparound services so that Bavarian is going to know, why is this person living in their car? How can we help them, you know, get back on their feet? Do they have a job already? Like, what do we have to do to kind of get this person out of their car and back into a living situation?
You might want to say who Jessica Hill is.
She's in charge of our CED department, which is
Community Economic.
Development. Yeah, there you go. Community Economic Development. Yeah.
Is that lot available for RV type vehicles?
No, it's just cars. I think we need another solution for RVs, but we got to get the safe park thing happening first. And this is what I go back to when you talk about time and like.
You worked on it for 2 years.
Yeah, it's been going.
Did you just say when?
September-ish is what they're telling me.
Very close.
I mean,
Very soon.
But that's another good
I'm not
thing.
guaranteeing it. I don't know when
And the
it's
first
actually.
one will be in Eric's district. Well, it's the only one we know of.
Right.
But you know, you see people parked on the street, and you could tell that they're homeless, but they have their hood up, like they broke down. And I stop and talk to them just like I'm talking to you. And a lot of them work jobs that just don't pay enough. I mean, like fast food, or you know, they got kicked out of an apartment before, and it went on their credit report, and they have poor credit, and you know, and once that happens, trying to find another location to move into is going to be impossible. But you know, I see them on Lakewood. I've noticed a couple of homeless people in their cars during the daytime, and that's one of the better areas in my district. La Loma, I see that as well. So again, they just have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to sleep. Problem.
Okay. We're going to move toward the end here. Maybe a couple more questions. Christine Chavez was asleep in a city park, or what had been a city park until just hours before. And she was run over by a tractor and pulling a mowing heavy equipment, mowing the park. And and she was killed. How do you respond to something like that? This is
Christina Chavez probably was like many of the homeless people I talk to that are up all night and they're on meth to stay awake all night in fear of being raped, in fear of being harmed by other ways or being robbed. And she found a place where she thought she was safe and she crashed. And that, that's basically it. And it was unfortunate.
Is it possible that Christine Chavez could be alive if we had had safe camping, sorry?
Well, you could say yes on that, but that's really a hypothetical.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know her if she had mental illness or what, but
We don't know why she was there. I mean,
We don't-
I think that one of the things about these spaces, I'm hoping, is that like our groups, our chat and downtown streets team, and our rangers are vetting a little bit some of the people that we let into these areas, so that we can manage them better, right? And then we find other solutions for the people that maybe need more help, right?
yeah, so I don't know much about her.
I'm going to give an opportunity for others to ask some questions if they would have them. Dawn, would you have any questions that you would like to ask these gentlemen?
Absolutely, and maybe this was covered earlier. Tell me a little bit about the response you're getting from your constituents in terms of where to put the homeless, where to house them.
I'll chime in on that. So, and this is controversial, but like I said earlier, this issue is not exclusive to District 2. These folks come from around the region. These folks come from all over Modesto. And so historically you see these experiments taking place and these folks just being thrown into District 2, because historically District 2 is a community of color. It's a historically underserved community, and these communities are poor, socioeconomically talking. And so there is the infrastructure available in District 2. However, if we do ever move towards safe camping as a city, I propose, why not distribute these homeless folks equitably throughout the city? Why just put them in District 2? Because if you live in District 1 near the mall or wherever, more affluent communities, you're going to feel that, why don't we put them in the hood? I live there. Why don't we put them over there? It's the same argument. How can we find a compromise, right? Because if you don't have as many folks who are being homeless coming from wherever else in Modesto outside District 2, you don't have much to worry about, because equity is not equal. Equally distribution is probably raised a little bit, ruffle a little more feathers. But if you only got 10 folks coming from District 1, then all you got to worry about is 10. If I got 600 in District 2, then it's equitable. You get 10, I get my fair share, and everybody gets their fair share. So I'll leave you with that, but that's how I feel about the distribution or the safe camping sites.
But what have the people you represent, the voters, said about where they house the homeless?
Well, you know where they're housed right now? They're housed in La Loma neighborhood, in parks. They're housed in Dry Creek. I shouldn't say housed, they're camping in Dry Creek. They're at Strathmore neighborhood in the alleys. They're at Rose Avenue Park, sleeping in their car. They're at La Loma Park, park during the daytime. That's where they are now, okay? We just want to find, and where that location is, it's the old saying, not my backyard, but you know what? They are in our backyard. We've just got to manage it.
But isn't that conversation a little bit different? In that conversation, isn't it move them out of my backyard, which is different than saying, we're going to put the people here, near my backyard permanently, or?
Well, I don't think we should put them in the belly of our neighborhoods, no.
More industrial.
Or, more industrial. But homeless people, my experience, I'm not an expert, but I talk to a lot of homeless people. Okay, they're territorial. They're in areas, and they run with a pack. Okay, northern which is Oakdale Road, they're not going to move over and go to Kansas Avenue because you don't know anybody over there. So we need to find areas that, like people who live in the or homeless in the north, we need to find pockets of areas where they can fit in. In shopping centers, no. In neighborhoods, no. But we have areas that I'm sure we can find.
And I think that they're great candidates, like city-owned land that's vacant. So there's a lot of good choices there, that we'd want to vet. But I think the way that I look at it anyway is like I want to try to find places that are going to impact businesses the least, neighborhoods the least, schools the least. But also, like, to speak to Eric's point, like, yeah, I want one in my district. I want to do my part. I want to practice what we preach. I want my district to take our responsibility for our people. Yeah.
I want safe campground in my district because I know that the homeless people there are going to go there. They're not going to go to your district or Eric's area. They're going to go, so we can now control where they go and manage it better and get them out of our parks and off our sidewalks. And if they don't want to go, then they need to be held accountable. We will have a place for them to go where they can have food, shelter, showers, restroom. But if they choose to still stay in Dry Creek in an encampment, we need to hold them accountable.
All right, Carlos?
Yeah, I was just going to follow up, maybe to try to get maybe to what I think Don is trying to get at is have those scenarios about these safe camps being located in your individual districts been discussed with your constituents, and how do they feel about the possibility that yes, there's a potential Band-Aid to the issue, but that Band-Aid
they're excited about it. That's the bottom line. They're excited about it because right now they're living in their park, right across the street in the park, or on their porch, or parked in a car across the street from their house. I think they're willing. They just want us to give us some solution. And the other thing that's important that I don't know if we're underlining enough, is these are temporary solutions. We cannot think of these campgrounds or these safe spaces as long-term solutions. They're not. They're bad solutions. We don't want to do this, but we can't do what we're doing now.
I have an advisory committee in District 4, people representing the neighborhoods. We've talked about homelessness. We've talked about safe camping or whatever word, safe sleeping or whatever you want to use. Not one person said, well, no, not my neighborhood, okay? I've held neighborhood meetings in Strathmore, Lincoln Estates, White Cliff, La Loma, talk about homelessness. Not one person ever came up to me and said, not in my neighborhood, or not in our area.
But if you put it like right in the middle of White Cliff, they're going to be mad, right?
Well, if you put it in Hyatt's Park.
Yeah. I mean, but so you got to use your head when you pick the right spot, an appropriate, good, safe spot for everybody.
Safe for the homeless.
We got to be thoughtful about this stuff.
Sounds like there's going to be a lot to talk about in the future if we don't already have enough to talk about now. Thank you very much. I'm afraid we're about out of time, and so we just want to really thank Eric Alvarez, Nick Bavaro, and Chris Ricci for being here with the Modesto Bee Editorial Board, advised by the Community Advisory Board. And thank you for the time that you've given us today. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.